I'm here with Jacques Gordon, who is global strategist for LaSalle and has been for the past year executive in residence at the Center for Real Estate at MIT, and Tobias Lindquist, who looks after, among other things, climate and carbon research in the research and strategy team. So, Jacques, you authored our latest ISA briefing note, In Search of Climate Wisdom. What is the search for climate wisdom, and what do you mean by that?
Well, it's a thought piece, Brian, to try to put into context the great effort at data gathering and benchmark submissions that are around really net zero or decarbonization, and to remind us all that real estate has been through similar changes in the past, usually around some miracle product like asbestos or herbicides or something like that only after it was introduced did the industry realize that there was actually harm being caused to society through these miracle products. And I'm just really saying, this process of both gathering the evidence to show that the heating and cooling of buildings done poorly actually adds to the problem of climate change. Moving from that very basic step, which is maybe 10 or 15 years ago now, to where are we now? Now we're at a step two where the market is responding, regulators are responding. Step three, benchmarks and best practices are being disseminated. Eventually, we'll be getting to the price integration step, and ultimately, I think we'll get to very much where we are with these other miracle products, where there'll be market integration and continued evolution as both technology with heat pumps or new ways of conserving energy at the building level and new ways of drawing the energy are on the technology side. And then there's a big market component that leads to a more discerning investor and occupier market. And then there's a regulatory component. So the steps to wisdom are about understanding all those steps and realizing as an investor or as a lender or as a market participant, all the data in the world isn't going to get you where you need to be in terms of making decisions. And the pyramid of going from sort of information and data up the pyramid to wisdom is all about understanding the why and the how, not just the what. So that's what I mean by climate wisdom, is to be realizing we're part of a process leading to smarter investment decision making, not just data gathering.
So you mentioned some of those steps, but those in your framework, it's first is evidence and awareness, second, market demand, 3, regulatory response, 4, benchmarks and best practices, 5, price integration, and 6 is just continued market and regulatory evolution. Where do you think that global real estate markets are on that path? It's probably too diverse to generalize, but where are we on that journey?
You're right. We're all over the map. I would like to think that pretty much the industry is all past step one, where we're aware of greenhouse gas emissions are part of the main contributor to climate change. So I'll bypass that one, although there are still holdouts and people who choose to overlook it. But generally, we're really in steps 2, 3, 4, and 5 simultaneously, and with step 6 still to come. So it varies by geography. It varies by jurisdiction. It's really, just as you said, Brian, it's hard to generalize and say that we're all together in the real estate industry and internationally at one place, because we're really not. So I'd say most, not all, but most of the developed countries of the world, led really by Europe and Canada and Australia, but also with the U.S. right behind, are really at this data stage where they're looking at their peer benchmarking data for the first time, and they're reporting it for the first time. So we're early stages in that step 4.
So step 5, the one about price integration, where these factors get priced into the real estate, that is, of course, super interesting for us as real estate investors and strategists. And it also ties back to the Value of Green report that we put out last year, which looks at evidence of sustainability factors getting priced into real estate. There are green premiums, brown discounts. We don't love those terminology, but you get the idea. Tobias was a lead author on that report, and he actually wrote a sidebar to this briefing note to Jacques' piece, where we updated that analysis with some of the most recent new reports and releases. So, Tobias, what did you find as you looked at some of the most recent evidence that's come through in the Value of Green?
Well, we do attach a few highlights of good findings that sort of still point to this presence of quite a clear premium in various markets across the world. But then we also look at a few other different reports, because one thing with the Value of Green reports is that they look generally mainly at price and rent premiums. So that's data that's gathered at transaction or signing leases. And, therefore they become naturally backwards looking. But we also focus on tracking other opportunities of value creation that is happening. So 2 interesting pieces that I think are really worth highlighting. They're both actually from JLL. The first one is called Future Proof Your Investment. And that really looks at the impact of building performance standards. And they make a general case for the average New York office and look at how that will be impacted by local law 97. And then they make quite a compelling business case on the value of aligning that building with a more energy efficient future. A second report, also really interesting, is called The Green Tipping Point. And there they go into quite great detail on how the occupier market is shifting and seeing an increased demand for sustainable spaces. They're seeing companies signing up to, for example, science-based target initiatives. And then they take that, they look at their office requirements and they project that into the future. And based on planned and present buildings, they look at where will the future supply demand balance sit. And their projection is quite stark, in that there'll be quite a significant supply shortfall. And I think, what this kind of tells us is that, yes, there are still clear signals of Value of Green being present in real estate markets, but it also really highlights the importance of being aware of what's happening right now with things like regulation, and also how the broader market, how the occupier market is responding to this sort of gathering of wisdom.
Well, Tobias, Jacques, thanks for joining me today and talking through the highlights of the report. If you'd like to read the full report, it is available on the Insights section of LaSalle.com. Have a read.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.